How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Excellent. I am so excited to have Amy and Carter with us today. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this. So I'm going to pull up my slide presentation real quick, which just has a layout of the questions we're going to ask. When Carter was on our agent spotlight the other day, we had hoped to have Amy, but she wasn't able to make it in person for that meeting. So I appreciate your jumping onto this one, Amy. As mentioned earlier, she's got the second highest conversion rate in the company for our team leads, which is spectacular. So clearly Carter and Amy are doing something really, really well when it comes to developing relationships with clients, figuring out what their clients' needs are and how to meet those needs. So I am going to pop up to the slideshow, which just has a list of our questions and some sub points in there. And then I'll kick it off where Amy, I'm going to go to you first and I'll let you answer the first question. Then I'll go to Carter and we'll just kind of do a little back and forth with that. But feel free to kind of chime in and just kind of play over with talk over each other as you need to. Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and answer your first question, which is?
Welcome to How to Convert Like a Top Producer. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Now I can.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So this is the third installment in our Zillow series where we are talking about, did I get that title right? How to Convert Like a Top Producer. Does that work?
Okay.
Joe created the title for the training, so I might have one or two words not exactly as he started the program with. So going into kind of our first question, clearly in the stages of our metrics as we go down the line, there is, first opportunity to really get that appointment scheduled, to be able to meet with the client, to get to the point where you're doing showings with the client, and then how do we get from doing showings with clients to submitting offers and ultimately leading to conversion. And that's where we want to kind of take off from this point. Do you have anything you want to add in real quick? Okay, Joe's standing next to me just in case. So, Amy, when you meet with a client at a home, do you do anything that kind of sets the tone for that first showing? So what are you doing when you walk up to the property? You go for
it. I've usually done my due diligence. I've looked at the property. I've done a super quick CMA just to see what has been selling in the area. And I've usually looked at the disclosures. So I know some things in advance and I'm ready to ask them because it seems people generally ask the same questions. And I like to have those at the ready. When I meet the people at the house, actually my focus is on them. My focus is on kind of reading their body language, kind of trying to figure out who they are in person. My focus is more on them than the home. But I do usually have the disclosures in hand for the first appointment. And often I will have the steps in the buying process in hand because I find that most people don't know them, even if they've purchased fairly recently.
Nice. Okay. And do you tell them a little bit about the property before you're going in, even if you've got the disclosures with you? I mean, are you kind of discussing what it is that you're going to be looking for, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I focus on them when we're outside of the property. And when we get in the property, I always give the disclaimer that I'm not an inspector. I'm not a licensed architect. But I do see hundreds and hundreds of houses. And so I am pointing out things that, maybe, or even just responding to things that they point out, like, oh, what is that damp smell or whatever. Yeah, I definitely am the trusted advisor and expert in the area. I'll mention when the home was built, like the year the home was built, when we're downstairs, generally looking to see what the mechanicals look like, just basics.
Okay. How about you, Carter? You had mentioned a little bit about when you were at the on Tuesday at the meeting, you had talked a little bit about your approach to kind of setting the stage for showings. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so kind of go back to what I was saying when on Tuesday in the meeting. I don't, unlike Amy, I don't actually print out the disclosures, although I do keep a buyer packet with me. I typically only give them out to first time buyers. I try to find that kind of more or less the older the client, in my experience, the less they want you handing them paperwork and a bunch of crap, just in my experience. Now everyone might have a different feeling on that. I try to not, but if they're a first time buyer, I do give out that buyer pack, and I don't do that right away. I do that actually at the very end of the showing, right before we're about to leave. Um, but I show up 15 minutes early. I get inside the house early and I take a look at everything so that I've already seen it. I already know the age of the water heater. I know the age of the furnace. I've looked at the disclosures, so I know the age of the roof, and if anything crazy has happened with the house in the last couple of years. I don't print them off. I do have somewhat of a photographic memory, which I think helps me a lot for this situation with buyers, because I can look at the listing for 2 seconds and memorize everything that I need to know. And then same with the disclosures. So I can take 2 quick seconds, look it over, and then I got it for at least the next half an hour, right? So I get there early. I know everything that we're about to see when we walk in. Obviously, I wait for them outside. I greet them outside, and I don't tell them any information about the property before we go in. I just try to shake their hand, look them in the eye, ask them if they have any questions before we go on in. And typically that's when they'll say, especially if mom and dad are along, dad's always going to ask, when was the house built? And how old is the roof? And I typically know that right away before we even go in. But so I know the answers to their questions. So if they do ask, I do know, but I try not to spend too much time talking about information relative to the house. And kind of like what Amy said, I'm trying to more talk about everything but the house. Trying to just get a feel for who they are as people and I'm always looking for some type of spot that I can connect with them, whether that be a lot of times, recently I've lucked out, like, for example, their kids wrestle. Well, I have a huge, life knowledge of background of wrestling all throughout my life and through college and even after. So that's a good one. Or, where they grew up, what they do for work, or whatever it is that I can find some sort of connection with them.
Nice. So common thread that I'm really seeing between the two of you is you make it all about the client, right? You're not let's jump into this house right away. You've got to buy it right now. You've got no time to make a decision. It's really about making a connection with the people that it is that you're meeting, looking for some commonality, maybe just trying to get a better feel for what their needs are and their communication style is before you even open the door.
Yeah, and a lot of times
Absolutely.
I find these first-time buyers, or I'm sorry, these Zillow leads are very often first-time buyers, especially if you're 350 or less. Typically, a lot of times they are. And in my experience, a lot of times the parents are there, if not for every showing, definitely for that first one. And then anytime I see that, which seems to be a hell of a lot for me, I go more for the parents than I do for the client. Like, that whole time in the showing, I'll be trying to connect and win the parents over more so than I'm even focused on who's actually buying the house. And I found that if I can get in with the mom or the dad and they really like me, that I find that I win that client 10 out of 10 times.
That is funny. You should look up my Facebook page and my Instagram this morning. My post last night was about working with parents.
Oh, really?
Good timing. Yeah. Yeah. Amy, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add before we kind of move on to the next piece about how you're kind of setting up the stage for that showing?
No, not really. Just, similar to Carter, just having a working background of what we're looking at so that I don't look like I have no idea what we're looking at. A lot of times people seem to think that you've been in the house before and whatnot. So just have a little bit of a working knowledge and really just looking to make that connection with the people, because you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So I don't want them to feel like I'm pressuring them, because I don't feel like it's right to pressure someone to buy a house. It's a huge decision.
Right. So just for everybody who's watching, here's a distinction with these two, and maybe you're already doing this. If you're not, I suggest trying this, but they're from the beginning, just by making it about the people before getting into the house, they're keeping themselves informed, and they're distinguishing themselves as different. They're not a door opener. They're not just there to open a door for somebody and get them into a house and let the person who's there kind of figure it out. They come in prepared. Both of them have their different style of how they like to do that, but they are familiar with what the house is that they're showing. And then they can focus on developing the relationship with the lead / client because they're already prepared for going into the house. So it's not like they're walking in blind and they don't know what it is that they're going to be looking at or looking for. So I love that about both of you. I think you're doing a stellar job with that. Let's move on here to question number 2. So how do you set, Carter, I'll let you answer this one first. How do you set expectation for and kind of structure your follow-up process after that initial meeting or showing, or whether it's taking place at the end? You must be doing something to kind of lead into what that next appointment is going to look like.
Yep, and I touched on this in the meeting on Tuesday as well. I have a totally different approach to this personally. I always ask, actually, I ask them, I say, hey, you know, based on where you guys, well, actually, rewind. I started off by when we're in the house, while we're in that meeting, as much as I'm trying to establish a relationship, at some point I need to identify what the hell they're looking for, right? So I try to get just the general idea of, you know, bed, bath, square footage, relative style, you know, if there's anything specific in area. And then when we're leaving, along with, if they're a first time buyer giving that packet, I say, I just go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and set you up with MLS access. And, you know, you can expect an email from me today at X time. And when you go ahead and open that email and click the link, you'll be able to see everything that I can see on my end. And you won't have to worry about, you know, getting your heart set on something that may or may not even be available. Right. And then after I say that, I say, based on your motivation levels and your current situation, when would it be best for me to follow up with you? And typically, you know, typically what I get is, hey, why don't you follow up with us sometime next week? Okay, great. And if something is I don't ever ask about pre-approval on the first meeting ever, but if something comes up where they ask about it or something along those lines, then I might also throw out, hey, tonight when I send that email over, I'm also going to share some information for a local lender that I'm partnered with, so that if you do feel ready for that, you can feel free to reach out to them and know that they're here to take care of you. And then I just do whatever they ask, right? If that's, hey, why don't you check up with us early next week? I say, okay, great. You can expect a call from me on Tuesday. I go and follow up us. I make a task to call them on Tuesday, and then I call them on Tuesday. And then what I also do is sometimes people will say, we'll follow up with you when we're ready, right? Well, obviously that's the roadblock to asking that type of question, right? Well, that's okay. What I do in that case is I monitor. I still set up the MLS access. I still send that over, and I just monitor. Did they click the link? Did they actually look at the MLS access I provided? And then if not, I'm going to monitor every day throughout that next week if they're looking on Zillow still or not, right? And if they are, then what I try to do is I try to identify a really, really perfect property that I think is the best one possible on the market for what they want. I send it to them and I say, hey, I found this property for you. I was thinking, you know, I send over the property and I say, hey, I found this property for you. Just wanted to let you know that I've been keeping an eye out for you and I've been looking for you, and I'm available to take care of you this weekend if you'd like to see any places. And that typically gets a response 10 out of 10 times. And if it's not, hey, yeah, that house looks great, let's go see it, it's, hey, we're out of town this weekend, but we'd love to connect with you next week. Boom. Now I know when they want me to follow up with them, it's next week. So I try to take a very light approach. I'm not very anti-aggressive, very passive, and just try to be the knowledgeable expert that wants to help.
I love it. So Amy, I'm going to go to you in just a second for this question, but as well, but I just recap a few things here that Carter is doing that really stand out to me. So number one, it's all about the client. So he's identifying the information during that showing, their needs, right? What are they looking for as kind of a basis for that? He tells him he's going to set him up on a search and he does it right away. Now you can actually use Mosaic as a way of doing that. And Mosaic's going to give you even more detail than the MLS will, because you're going to get different types of reminders, and it's going to show them, sorry, my phone's ringing. It's going to show them different maybe options that wouldn't come up on just those filters on the MLS. So I would encourage you to maybe incorporate using that new system that's state of the art into your process. But the biggest thing here is if he tells him he's going to do something, that's what he follows up with. And just because they're not responding to him doesn't mean that he stops responding to them. So he's not saying, oh, well, they didn't respond to my, sending them a search on the MLS. He's actually watching for their activity. Are they still using Zillow? Are they logging into the MLS? And he's finding a way to re-engage with them instead of just waiting for them to at some point get back to him. You have a very proactive approach, and I love that.
And if they don't
Amy, going over
respond
to
that
you.
first time, just keep, I do once a week, just keep sending stuff, right? What ends up happening is either eventually they respond, or eventually you find out that they're not no longer in the market, or they're no longer this or that, and then you can adjust the plan from there. But I don't ever stop reaching out until they either tell me not to, or there's something that's come up for their situation that they're no longer in the market.
And that's the value in what you're doing, right? Because so often it's easy to just reject leads and assume, hey, I've tried contacting them a couple times, or they ghosted me once, and so this is a dead lead. No, really, maybe it's a lead that's taking more cultivation, and you have to be a little bit more proactive in your approach. And until they tell you, drop dead, don't ever contact me again, you can assume that their needs haven't changed because they haven't told you otherwise. So good job with that, Carter. Amy, I want you to be able to chime in here on this question. So what are you doing as far as setting expectation and follow up when you're with them?
Yeah, I actually like what Carter said, that he's kind of passive, and actually I like to say that I'm calmly in control. I'm not on your timeline. I don't, know when you're actually going to be ready to buy a house. It might not be what you tell me. So I kind of let them feel like they're in the driver's seat while I am behind the scenes. So I am also setting them up with the search and the access. I'm excited to use Mosaic. I haven't used that yet, but I set them up with the search and the access. And then I also monitor what they're doing. So when I log into the MLS, I can see, have they opened that? Have they looked at it? I can go into Zillow Premier and see, are they looking at similar houses? What are they doing? So I guess for me, I'm a very relational person. So scripts, I think, are great, but they make me a little anxious. And so I'm a scaffolding person. I know the outline of the information that I need, and I try to work it into the conversation naturally without thinking about it, which, I guess I just have like a little background running in my mind while I'm talking. I want to know, how many houses have they looked at? Have they looked with other agents? Are you working with someone else? Like, if it works into the conversation naturally, that's awesome. At the end of the showing or showings, if I haven't gotten what I needed, I just ask them outright in the most confrontational way that I can. And then I tell them that I'll send you some other homes that match what you're looking for. Tell me if I'm making good matches. Tell me if I'm close, or show me what you like instead. I also set expectations. The inventory is really low right now, historically low. So I let them know that I'm going to send them a wide variety of things, and I probably won't overwhelm them with the number of options, and that they might surprise themselves and find something that they didn't think they were looking for. So stuff like that. Lender conversation, I find that it actually comes up pretty naturally for me, with people will tell me that they have gotten that far in the process or they haven't, but I don't mind asking. And I just let them know, like, hey, if you are looking to purchase in the relatively near future, if we're out and about and you see something and you really like it, we can't offer on it without a pre-approval. And, I have lenders that are fantastic that can get you pre-approved if you have your paperwork in the same day or one business day. So, I kind of like plant the mustard seed, right? I let them know that it's a possibility and let their wheelhouse start working on it without feeling super salesy, like I'm pressuring them. And I do find that setting up another appointment usually comes pretty naturally. Sometimes I have people that are just kind of like, oh, we'll see. And I let that play out naturally because I don't have time and resources for people that really don't want to buy. Now I do keep in contact with them like Carter, and your response to me dictates how much and how long I go before I contact you again. But I do keep in touch even, and I'm kind of, like I said, I'm a familiar person and I like relationships. So as long as it wasn't an odd or awkward meeting, I might even just, after like some monitoring of what they're doing and sending them a couple of more formal things, I might just text them out of the blue 4 to 6 weeks later if they haven't, had any contact or hadn't had any real interest, and just be like, hey, and I've gotten Zillow clients back from 6 months and a year for doing stuff like that.
Resurrecting the dead, that's what we call it. I'm just
Resurrecting
kidding.
the dead. And I try not to let it get too dead. I always want to be, it's exhausting to be like, oh, I'm always going to be top of mind. Like, I just don't stress out about stuff like that. And I feel like that comes through in my approach. I'm not stressed. I'm actually care if you want to work with me. I care if we're a good fit. And I tell my clients outright, I'll even say, do you want to meet me at the house and we'll take a look at it. And even if the house isn't a good fit, we can see if we're a good fit. I'm not afraid to say that. I tell people outright that this can be a bit of a roller coaster of a process, and you want to have someone with you that you trust. And I think that that really puts them at ease. And if I'm not the right person, that's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm not trying to be. So I want to be taking this journey with the people that want to take it with me. And I feel like it's an honor and a privilege, and I can't serve everyone, and I'm okay with that.
So I love a couple of things you do as far as the direct approach. Like, you tell them you're going to send them properties. You might, you're setting the stage for the fact that inventory is low, and you might send them a variety. That's going to help them kind of stay open-minded to properties that might be a good fit for them that they otherwise wouldn't consider. And that, you're being mindful of your time as well. So when it comes to follow up with leads, so many of our leads are long-term nurtures. They're going to transact after 8 months. I think the statistic was like 38% of all of our leads would transact after 8 months. So if you are just keeping houses in front of them, that's a great way to stay engaged, proposing a showing. It sounds like both of you are kind of going that route as well. And then getting feedback from your client where you're keeping house hunting top of mind, and they see that you are proactively doing work for them. You're not just sitting around waiting for them to contact you, because what's the difference in contacting you or going to another real estate site to look up someone else who's going to answer the call on the first time? If you're establishing that relationship, you really truly care about their needs, and you're moving forward with keeping properties in front of them, you have a higher rate of clients that will come back to you, or leads that will want to partner with you. I'm going to go on to the next slide here, which you guys have kind of been, in the last one, you were, kind of pouring over into this section, I guess. So elaborate on this in a way that you want to, but what methods or frequencies are the most effective for you for keeping leads engaged in the buying process? And I think you both have said that you are sending properties to them, but I would love to know if that involves a certain number of calls that you're making, if you are keeping them informed about certain facets of real estate. Are you having conversations about interest rates? Are you just texting properties? So maybe elaborate just on this specific part about keeping the leads engaged with you. Carter, you go ahead.
I think the better the relationship you have and the more understanding you have of what their situation is and what they're actually looking for, the easier it becomes to keep them engaged in the process. Because the more I know about where they're at, the easier it is for me to send valuable and relevant follow-up, right? So if I know that the sticking point for somebody is interest rates, well, then I'm going to reach out to them every time Colin has an update on where rates are at or where rates are headed, right? If it's a different thing that's hindering their search, right? Like maybe it's they're renting for the next, I know they signed a lease and they're going to rent, they're still got 8 months, right? Well, then I've already set the expectation to them. Hey, I know your lease is up in 6 months or 8 months. That's okay. I'm going to stay in touch once a month, and I'm just going to give you a little market update. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help. And then I know, okay, that person's, this is where they're at. I'm going to touch them once a month with the market update, just like I said I was going to. I don't typically send any properties to anybody that I don't know is looking, right? So if I don't see them on my MLS dashboard and that they're still looking at my properties and stuff, if they're not looking at those, then I'm not going to be sending them properties either. I'm going to try to, at that point, re-engage them in a way that hopefully I can connect with them over the phone, so that I can get a better understanding of, okay, here's where we're at, so that I can adjust my follow-up accordingly to actually try to provide some value instead of just, hey, are you ready yet, or whatever, right?
Focused value, right? So you're keeping what's relevant in front of them. I love that that's the word that you used. Amy, how about you? What are you, doing in terms of, like, is it number of calls that you're making to them? Is it always trying to stay in, once a week point of contact, or what does that look like for you?
I'm very fluid about that. So I really let the conversation and the relationship so far dictate when I talk to them. There are people that are very standoffish. People are like, oh, this isn't my first rodeo, or I'm talking to other agents. So kind of like Carter, I make sure that I make the connection, maybe even outside of real estate where I can. I bring those things into the conversation when I can to remind them that we have a commonality. I will definitely be sending the homes and the MLS access, but anyone can do that. And so, like Carter, I additionally look through it myself, find ones that I think are most relevant out of the ones that I sent them, because they may have looked at the email, they may have not. And sometimes I'm like, hey, look, this came in the search today for you, and this was very much like the one that we looked at, but it has the feature that you wanted that we didn't have. So I think when you personalize it, when you show that you care and that you took some time and that they're not a drop in the bucket, they're usually pleasantly surprised. And I think you set yourself apart from different agents. I want them to know that I'm not that kind of agent, that Pemberton Homes doesn't have those types of agents, that we are different and we set ourselves apart from the rest in the industry. We're knowledgeable, we care. I'm low pressure. If you're going to buy a house, you're going to buy a house. And I want to be that person that helps you through the journey. And if you're not going to buy a house right now, you're probably going to buy one sometime. And when I get the opportunities, I'll be in your ear about the advantages of homeownership and whatnot, because that's one of my favorite topics, investment properties. I love to talk to people about this kind of stuff. So I just kind of let the relationship dictate, but I probably don't go more than maybe 1 to 2 weeks without saying something, because it'll start to get awkwardly distant. But I usually reach out every couple of weeks, unless I've got someone who's very clearly standoffish or doesn't seem like a serious buyer, then it might be a little bit less frequently. Kind of depends on their response.
But both of you are basing it off the relationships that you've developed with the client and kind of what their needs are, and letting that dictate how you move forward. Now, let's say you're in a showing with someone, maybe you've showed these people 2 or 3 homes. What are you each doing when you're in that showing to kind of set up the next appointment? Are you leaving every showing with a follow-up plan in place, or something that you are committing to doing on behalf of that client? Are you asking them or telling them you're going to continue to send them properties, or are you trying to schedule the next set of showings? What are you doing in that regard? Carter?
Again, for me, it's relational. So, usually if it's a newer home buyer, like Carter said, we get a lot of newer home buyers, and not always younger, but sometimes younger home buyers. And so really what I like to do is kind of tell them a story about homeownership, almost like make them see that it's possible, and that, what they thought was difficult might be attainable, and you don't always have to have a huge down payment, and that there's workarounds and there's things that can be done, and that most people can become property owners. So I kind of, I don't know, put the kernel of the dream out there for them. I've had a lot of young, excited people who probably were like, oh, thanks for showing us this home. Like, we're not really ready. We don't even have a down payment. But as long as you're aware of the resources that are out there and you can share it with them, I feel like I get a lot of response to that, where, I let them go away. I let them have it in their mind. And more often than not, they're reaching back out to me and saying, hey, what were you saying about those down payment programs? Or can you tell me more about this? So I just kind of like to set the stage for, you don't know what's possible because you don't know what's possible, and let that kind of be the driver sometimes.
Okay, I like that. Carter, how about you? Are you setting a stage for like after each appointment?
Well, the way I was trained and when I first got in the industry, it was really easy to do that because there was a lot of properties to share with them. I could set the appointment and say, say the lead, came in on Wednesday, I showed them the house. I could set that appointment for Saturday and say, hey, why don't we go out and what's your schedule on Saturday look like? Why don't we go out and take a look at a few more, right? But at that time, there actually was houses to go and look at. So typically with inventory as low as it is, there's usually not a lot of other options to go see within the next day or two. So typically my focus on is, just developing that relationship and getting an understanding of what they're looking for, and then knowing that I've done a good job making a first impression. And if I continue to put relevant info and properties in front of them, there will be a next appointment.
Yep.
And then obviously once you've gone on 3-4 appointments with somebody, in my book, I already got them. They're already my client. They're working with me. There's almost nothing that's going to come up to prevent it now. And I feel like at that point, not only did I earn the trust of the client, but they've earned the trust of me, that when something does come on, that I'm going to be the guy that they reach out to go see it. And I see that happening over and over and over again, where people I even forget to reach out back to me and are like, hey, we found this house, can we go see it tomorrow? Just yesterday, I had an investment client of mine who I've sold 4 properties to now over the last 2 years, reach out to me out of the blue, haven't touched them since we closed the last closing at all, and reached out to me to go see a $500,000 duplex that they want to buy in cash. So
Wow.
If that's just a good example of, once you have that trust, that I feel like the whole process moving forward is a hell of a lot easier.
Yep.
Right. So you both
100%.
have a little bit of differences in your approach. Amy, it sounds like, you put enough value out there that people are just kind of drawn back to working with you. You become like their source of information. And Carter, you always seem to be very proactive and just kind of not saturating them with information, but making sure that what the touch points you are making are very relevant. And I like that too. So great job for both of you in that regard. Now let's transition a little bit into kind of like where we see a lot of things happening in the market right now. So you've gone out on showings with clients, you're starting to develop that successful relationship with them, or meaningful relationship with them, where you think you've got their trust and they will purchase a house with you. And in come the doubts and the hesitation. Rates are too high. We're not sure if it's the right time. What are you guys doing to kind of address those concerns and then still be able to nurture that relationship, even if they're telling you, they're not sure if it's right, and maybe they want to pause things for a little while, or kind of getting them over those fears so that they do stay engaged and continue to move forward with buying a house? Carter, go ahead and jump in. You can answer that one first.
I think, what I try to do is, again, kind of, I'm super passive. I'm not the aggressive guy that says, oh, even though rates are high, we're going to do this and we're going to get you in a house. I don't act like that. I try to relate to them. You know what? I understand that rates are high, and you know what? There's a lot of buyers out there that are feeling the exact same way you are, right? And what a lot of people are doing in today's market to accommodate the current interest rate situation is X, Y, and Z, right? And here's what that looks like for you. So this is about approximately how much you could save per month now, knowing that rates will come down in the future, right? They always have, they always will. It's a cycle, and it's just how the real estate industry works, right? So I try to, you know, when I know there's a cloud of doubt about something, I try to address it and kind of create a situation where I can walk them through how we can best accommodate that doubt without, you know, are we going to fix rates today? No, we're not. But here's how we can, you know, here's what we can do to put you in just a little bit better situation than what you would be at buying this, you know, the way it sits today, right? And maybe that little bit of, you know, maybe that extra couple percent on the rate that they've seen over the last year. For example, I've had people that I've been looking with for 2 years, right? Well, when they started looking, rates were at 4%. Now they're not. So they've been priced out a little bit. And along with that, the same homes we were looking at cost more per month, right? So how can, if the monthly payment is the sticking point, how can we find a situation where you're below that monthly payment that you want to be in, right? And I just try to create an image that, hey, I do have the solution for what you're looking for. And if you are really motivated to buy, I'm happy to help you get the best deal you possibly can today. And really, I think that's all you can do, right? And I mean, I guess that's really all I could say that I do about it. I just try to address it without being like aggressive about it.
Sure. So, Amy, I'm going to turn it to you in 1 second for this, but here's what I like about Carter's approach. Number one, he's not saying, okay, well, thanks so much. It was nice meeting you. I wish you the best, right? He is refusing to give up on the relationship. He's trying to get to the bottom of what the hesitation or the doubt is with the client. And then he's showing them home ownership is still a possibility in terms of moving forward, depending on what it's based on, right? So when he's getting to the heart of the issue, he can kind of determine from there what direction he needs to go and offering some alternatives. Good job with that. I think that's awesome. How about you, Amy? What is kind of your approach when you have people who decide, hey, we're on the fence now or we're not going to move forward?
I feel like it's very similar to Carter. It's low pressure. I'm not an alarmist kind of personality. I'm kind of like the calm in the storm. I'm the buoy. I've been a property owner for 30 years. And the rates right now are better than when I bought 30 years ago. And I'll tell you what, none of my assets have lost me money. It's always more expensive to pay for someone else's dream in the long run. So let's see what your goals are. I think I like to remind people of their why. Like, what is your goal here? Bring it back to the original point. Like, why did we even start doing this? Why are we here? The rates have been what they've been for months. Why are we even looking? So we can't control the rates, but what we can control is you being a property owner and having an asset and paying towards your dreams and your future instead of somebody else's. So I think that's real. I think it creates its own sense of urgency. I don't like to create false senses of urgency or make people feel stressed because that breaks trust and it's not necessary. It's not in my personality really. So as far as calming fears, I'm just like, you know, we don't control the rates. They are what they are. And they're lower than they were when I bought my first property in like 1995 or whatever. So, you know, it is what it is. Are we going to see 2 or 3% ever again? I don't know, but if we do, I'll be calling you up and helping you buy every piece of investment property that you can possibly afford. We'll be taking equity out of this one that you're buying now because that's a real asset and that's what that does for you. And I think, again, reminding them of why they started, asking them to, you know, tell you what their goal is again, and then showing them how I can get them to the goal. And that being a homeowner and a property owner is always of value. And that there's a cost to it if you can't buy it outright. Well, there's a cost to it even if you can, but it's always of value and it's always worthwhile. And keeping it low pressure because, and then I think that the market itself has created its own pressure with individual properties. I set the expectation from the beginning when I meet people that, it is the slower time of the market than the spring market, but I'm still regularly in multiple offer situations. So, being out there and putting offers on property and being a person who's in the mix and in this business day in and day out, I can tell you that if you really want to buy something and you're serious, that you need to be pre-approved. We need to have that in hand. We need to be ready to go. So that creates its own sense of urgency. And it also helps me weed out the people who are, it's never no, it's just not right now.
Love that. Okay, so two takeaways, big takeaways for me. Carter has this, he creates a relatability when an objection comes up, right? It's empathy. I understand your feeling. I feel how you feel about the rates. So, and then he's identifying kind of what the core issue is and proposing a solution so that homeownership is still possible for that person. Amy has a keep your eyes on the prize approach, right? Remember what the goal is and kind of putting motivation back in front of the client and to help them think about why they started the process to begin with. And so I love that you each have your own tactic, but it very much revolves around the same type of activities, which is providing value to your client, helping them work the problem, and you're presenting solutions to them. And then they're able to move forward. So both of you are doing a great job on that. I'm going to skip over this next question just for sake of time and because I feel like we've covered this pretty well in some of our other points too in terms of how you're getting feedback from your clients and you're using that to keep properties in front of them and kind of move them down the line. I am kind of curious though, like, so when a client likes a home, sorry, my computer is interesting, keeps pulling the pop-up. When a client really likes a home, what is it that you're doing to kind of convey excitement, enthusiasm? Are you matching their energy? Are you talking about, anything that's happening with that house? Are you reaching out to a listing agent to get more information in front of them? Or are you just paying attention to their verbal cues? And what are you doing to really just guide them into making an offer on that property?
I feel like I kind of low key mirror my customer all the time. I do feel like, I'm an expert in the industry. I want to be your trusted advisor, but I'm also a coach and a bit of a cheerleader. But if you're a real low energy person, I'm not going to be a chihuahua. But if you're maybe a real young couple that's super excited, then I'm going to build on that excitement and tell you that, yes, this is possible. This particular question is kind of like, yes, it's hard for me to build more excitement about a property because if it's a well-priced, attractive property, chances are you better get pre-approved. We don't have much time. So it kind of lets me know how much skin you have in the game, but there will always be another one. There will always. So I feel like it's my job. And I've had a lot of clients, a lot of Zillow clients that we were in it for the long haul. I've looked at properties. One client I closed in July, I picked her up in March of 22. I probably showed her, I don't know, 50, 70 properties. And, it's just about keeping them encouraged and keeping them engaged. So I know a lot of people are like, holy cow.
You worked hard for that one.
I what?
Yes.
I worked hard. I probably actually paid for that one. But, sometimes for me, the benefit really is like yesterday, I just closed with a family who moved here from New Hampshire. They were in a rental in Woodbury that looked good on paper and on the internet and ended up being absolutely terrible for them. They went through a lot of hardship while they were there, and I got them a beautiful home in Oakdale. And I can tell that it's probably just from their responses, it's probably the best home that they've ever owned. And just the feeling sometimes is, awesome. It's an honor. So yeah, I absolutely mirror my customer to an extent. I mean, I am who I am, so I'm not a chameleon, but I tone it down if you're toned down, and if you're excited, then I'm just my normal excited self.
Back to, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone. I call that the Jesus method. Become all things to all people, right? So you're matching energy levels, you're knowing when you need to counter those energies. If you see enthusiasm and excitement in your client's face and their verbal cues and their body language, if they keep talking about, oh, they could do this with the property and that with the property, and they're really picturing themselves living there, play off of those things, and you can almost always guide them into making an offer. Carter, I would love for you to chime in on this. What are you doing that kind of helps your clients get to that point of, let's put it on paper?
Sorry, my laptop just went up 5% and it's dying.
Run.
Run, Carter, run.
Of course, my charger's downstairs. So I don't do too much extra stuff as far as trying to get them more excited, but the way that I was trained, and I think Chelsea's on here, she's probably trained the same way because we trained together. Some people, in order to get the offer, you got to ask for the offer, right? So
Yep.
If I know that if I think it checks all their boxes, then when we wrap the showing up and they seem excited about it, I'm asking them, God damn it, I don't know where my laptop charger is. Hopefully this doesn't die.
Your house, Carter.
Sorry. But if I know it checks all the boxes, then I'm asking them, hey, so it seems to me as if this house pretty much checks all of your boxes, right? Would you say that this house is missing anything, or could you see yourself in this house one day, right? That's kind of roughly along the lines that I use, and they typically are like, we need to talk to our lender and think about it, or whatever it is, this, that, or the other thing. And if there's some sort of bridge there, then I'm right away on the phone with the lender the moment I get in the car, or I'm right away on the phone with the listing agent right when we get in the car. Hey, maybe whatever the deal breaker, or the issue might be, I'm trying to address it right away. And then a lot of times what happens, at least over the last few years, is that there's another offer coming in. So it's, hey, I know this house checked all the boxes. I know that you said you could see yourself living here. They got another offer coming in. And if you're serious about the possibility of moving forward with this home, we're going to have to get something in today or tomorrow. And typically the urgency, knowing, it's funny how this works, but it seems like when people know someone else want to buy something, they want to buy it. It's like, it's funny how that is, but it's like once they find out that somebody else is making an offer, now they want to offer. But before that, they weren't so sure. It's like, what about this other offer that's coming in is what makes you want it? When we could have made this offer 2 days ago and we could probably already done the inspection by now.
So creating a sense of urgency after there's really excitement in the home, and flat out asking, is this the one? Can you see yourself living here? Do you want to move forward with an offer? Chelsea, I saw your comment as well that you do the same thing. I think that's great. Sometimes we just have to ask that question, right? We have to propose it as a real possibility. Is this the one? If it is checking all their boxes and you've been working with them from the beginning, what has stood out as the most important features of a home the whole time that you've been working with them. And I think sometimes it's easier for us agents as well to see that that's the right house for them. I don't hesitate to tell my clients sometimes, guys, I think this might be the one for you. It's literally got everything that you were looking for. It's in the price range, it's in the location, whatever that might be. And just ask those questions that kind of open them up a little bit to really seeing themselves living in the property. Well, you guys are two amazing agents. You have fantastic conversion rates. I think you're doing a stellar job. If there's some takeaways here for everybody today, a common denominator between what Amy's approach is and Carter's approach is really making it all about the relationship with the client, setting a follow-up and following through with that follow-up, gaining the client's trust, finding out what the client's needs are, and then figuring out how to move forward with delivering on those needs, right? So they are both taking proactive approaches to keeping clients engaged, giving them relevant information, making them feel informed, making them see that, you know, the agent's out there working on their behalf. So I bet if I called any of the leads that Amy or Carter is working on, they would all tell me they have an agent, even if they're not under contract yet, because they're doing such a good job of making sure that the relationship is at the forefront. Really good, great job, guys. I can open it up for like the next 2 minutes if anybody wants to ask a follow-up question, but thank you so much for all that you're doing. I think you're fantastic examples of starting a process and seeing it all the way through to the finish. And one other thing that I'd like to say about that to all agents is keep this in mind. If we're starting with a lead and we don't take it through to the finish, we've really lost all that time that we've invested. We've lost time for ourselves, but also the buyer's time and coming out to meet with us or maybe staying engaged with us for a little bit. So I think that follow-up is so critical. And just, if you're going to make a commitment to a lead or to a client, follow through with that commitment. It reflects on your business as a whole, on who you are as a person, on the team and the company as well. And I think that's how you build dynamite real estate businesses. And you make sure that when you're servicing the need of the client, that they are always bringing back referrals to you after they have closed on their property. Both of these agents also said that they have clients who have repeatedly worked with them in purchasing homes, right? So they're doing something right where now the leads that they've already closed or clients who already are homeowners or property owners want to continue to come back and work with them for future sales. Great job, guys. Any last questions before we wrap it up? Doesn't look like it. You see, you covered all the information thoroughly. So thank you very much for what you are doing. Feel free to reach out. Oh, I got one comment in the chat. Just thanks all. Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate your comment. Everybody have a great day. Let's get out there and crush it. The leads don't suck. Typically, we suck at follow-up, right? And if we've learned anything today, it's about great follow-up with these agents. So
I just got a text while we were doing this interview for a client that I closed last October and said, I'm pregnant. Help me find something bigger. That's the magic sauce right there. Just keep in touch.
People always need to move.
We had one coffee in the past year, but I just, I care about her and she knows.
Awesome. Love that, Amy. Well, we're looking forward to the next sale that you get with that client too. So if anybody has any questions, reach out. We'll continue to do more of these trainings as we go forward to help everybody build a dynamite real estate business. I hope everyone's having a great Thursday and we will see you all later. Okay. Bye. Thanks again.